Hello everyone, my name is Rusty, also known as Ari Lewis 2011, and you're watching Zach Archer.
I'm not even exaggerating. Smash Summit 11 was insane and possibly the greatest Melee event I've ever watched. Quite possibly the greatest Melee Grand Finals I've ever watched, that's for sure. It's crazy. What a crazy, Melee is something I love to watch, and in case you don't know what Smash Summit 11 is, or Smash Summit in general, it's an event they put on every year. Usually I think it's 2 times a year. Beyond the Summit is the group that puts it on. And it's an event basically where they invite usually all of the best Melee players to compete, as well as a significant amount of voted in players, so people can vote in a certain amount of players each time. And then certain players who qualify through a couple key events leading up to the Summit. So each Summit event, you end up with kind of like consistent amount of, you're always going to have the top level talent, but there's also those key question marks going into the event, like the players that aren't there every year. You know, a lot of times there's each Summit, there are players that you don't really see again, and you probably won't see again ever, like in another Summit. So each Summit's unique in that way, but also you have a lot of familiar faces, your Mangos, your Hungryboxes, and whatnot, who you can always expect to be there, the top players. So it's an event that not only does Melee competitive formats, but also has a bunch of cool side events they always do, namely Melee side events, but also in addition to that, especially in more recent Summits, they've been doing some more IRL side events, such as basketball and the obstacle course that they just did in the last Summit. The obstacle course is probably my favorite so far in that realm, because it was fun. It was fun seeing the Melee players just going ham in there. But one of the highlights of the Summit every year for me is Mafia, which is, it seems weird. It seems like very different. It's like Melee and Mafia don't really go hand in hand, but it's kind of cool how they've Summit, Melee, or Summit and Mafia have become like almost synonymous with each other. Every Summit, it's a tradition now to have Mafia, and it's cool. You get to see some of your favorite Melee players playing Mafia. Mafia is a game I've really grown to love through Summit, and this is before things like Among Us really popularized this kind of game, you know. So it was always an interesting thing to watch and something I always look forward to. It was kind of more understated in this event. There weren't as many as I recall usually being there. I think there was only 3 total, but I did watch them all. I watched everything this Summit. That's the biggest problem I always have, is that this event sneaks up on me, so I don't request off from work in time. Ideally, I would like to, because then it's hours of content that whenever I get back from work I have to catch up on. It's grueling. I was lucky that I was able to watch the grand finals and all the last day live pretty much, and that was hype. I was glad I was there for that, because Mango versus Zane was an insane grand finals, and if I had missed it, it would have been a shame, because the thing with missing it is, unless you go into like Twitch and then you go into the VOD to the certain time, you really kind of get an idea of how the set goes if you see it already uploaded on YouTube, you know, based on the length. It was a really long set, so I would have known that the bracket was reset. But of course it did go to game 10, last stock situation, so it was really up in the air. And this is the biggest prize pool in Melee history, so the stakes were very high. Ultimately Mango came out with a victory, which was insane. But not only that, the storyline coming into the event was really cool, because it was the first in-person Melee event in over a year and a half, since the whole pandemic disrupted the whole scene and put everything on halt, basically. Everything was reduced to online, so there was interesting storylines that came from that, where Hungrybox kind of fell out of his power position, number 1 spot. He was having really poor results in there, and then Mango and Zane emerged as like the 2 above and beyond everybody else in results throughout the whole online era. But yeah, that was a storyline coming into this event. It was like, how are people like Hungrybox and Axe going to do when it's not online and like all eyes are on them. Hungrybox especially was the number one player before the pandemic. He was the winner of the last in-person summit before this one. So it's such a weird situation to have going on, but I never would have predicted in 2019 that Hungrybox would have been the underdog here, because he was just dominating. He was the number one player 3 years in a row. So it was really interesting to see that he ultimately ended up placing third place, which was outperforming pretty much everyone's expectations, including myself. I'm a huge Hungrybox fan. I love watching him. I loved watching him when he was number one and dominating, and now I love watching him from this new position now where he acknowledges that Mango and Zain are the better players, but he's trying to scrap back to the top. And you could see the spark. He even mentioned at the event that the spark was back for him, so he's going to be going to every event like he did during his reign of supremacy a few years ago. But it was insane to watch him, because I expected it to be a poor showing for him. I was just optimistic he'd at least make top 8 or something, like I didn't want him to struggle that much. But bam, he really returned to form here. And the fact that he beat IBDW, when I saw he was going off against him, I'm like, oh, that would be nice. But IBDW he's been destroying Hungrybox like every time they play. And I mean, it's largely been online, but he even beat him at the in-person summit where IBDW really made his name to begin with. So he beat him offline, and then ever since the online era, he's been destroying him like every set they played. So I did not expect that in the slightest. But wow, I was glad to see it. I was glad to see him place there, but it was almost fitting that it ended up being Mango and Zain in the end. And the front runner for everyone, including myself, would be Zain in that situation. I mean, Mango and Zain there's been an ongoing rivalry back and forth. But if I was ever going to put my money on someone, it was going to be Zain, because he's just so dominant in anything he does. And so when it came down to Fox versus Marth, it was even more impressive that he ended up winning by not only resetting the bracket, going to a Game 10 situation, but in order to get there, he had to beat him on Final Destination twice, Fox versus Marth, which was historically like, wow, that is so Marth favored. It's always been the narrative. And here, like, Mango is turning everything on its head. And it was a treat to watch. The whole event was a treat to watch, but particularly the top 3 is where a lot of my attention was this year. Really, really fun stuff. I always love these events. I'm looking forward to the Ultimate Summit 3, which will be coming up very soon. Smash Ultimate is another game that I watch competitively. I mean, especially after seeing this, I don't think it really compares in terms of being a competitive game and in terms of the narrative behind it. But I still love Ultimate, and there's still some great entertaining players that I'd love to see there in the Summit, and excited to see what they come up with. So there's that. And I mean, there's going to be more events very soon. Like even the next Smash Summit is going to be at the end of the year. The next Melee one, I mean. So no shortage of things to look forward to. But damn, yeah, I'm here for it. It's my favorite event. I just need to try to get off work maybe this time. We'll see. Go to ZachArcher.net for everything else.